I've spent 100 years learning how to fly in my sleep, and I finally found the one place the dream doesn't want you to go. Look, you know that heart in your throat feeling when you're falling in a dream? That jolt that slams you awake at 3 a.m., leaving you gasping for air while staring at a dark ceiling? Imagine if you just didn't. Imagine if, instead of hitting the floor, you decided that gravity was just a suggestion made by a brain that's too tired to argue. That's where this starts. Most people wake up because they accept the fall as reality. I stayed under because I accepted the fall as an invitation. I became lucid in a gray, lifeless office, the kind with fluorescent lights that hum a low, depressing C-sharp. Total cubicle nightmare. I knew I was dreaming because the coffee in my mug was glowing purple and tasted like liquid starlight, so I decided to check out. I smashed through the window, ready to soar like a superhero. However, I didn't soar. I plummeted. I felt heavy. My limbs were lead. I was thrashing in midair like I was stuck in thick, invisible syrup. I wasn't flying. I was failing to fall with any dignity. This forced me to stop fighting the air and start negotiating with it. In a dream, your expectations are your engine. I stopped trying to flap my arms like a bird and instead willed the atmosphere to thicken into a solid, crystalline slide of ice. I hit the surface with metallic clink and began a high-speed slalom through the skyscrapers. It was exhilarating. Then, as I gained speed, the building started to liquefy, turning into giant, shimmering pillars of mercury that rippled with my reflection. Seeing no other option, I reached into my pocket, pulled out a handful of marbles I didn't know I had, and tossed them into the sky. They didn't fall. They expanded into massive, bouncy spheres of light that filled the horizon. Suddenly, I was playing a high-stakes game of pinball with the clouds. Every time I hit a sphere, I was launched with a burst of kinetic energy that felt like a shot of pure adrenaline. I'm telling you, once you get past the fear, the dream becomes a sandbox. I kicked off a silver sphere and shot upward, breaking the cloud layer into the Nebula of Jellyfish. Thousands of glowing, translucent creatures the size of houses, drifting in the void. I reached out to touch one. Surprisingly, it didn't sting. It tasted like blue raspberry pop rocks. Don't ask me how a touch is a flavor when you're in the director's chair. The senses bleed into each other. I dove deeper, spiraling toward a forest of giants, singing mushrooms that pulsed with every beat of my heart. The sound wasn't coming from my ears. It was vibrating through my bones. Yet, the deeper I went, the more the colors started to shift into shades I've never seen in the waking world. Ultraviolets and deep, resonant golds that felt heavy to look at. As a result, I realized the environment was responding to my level of focus. The more I looked, the more detail the dream generated. The problem was this placed a massive strain on my lucidity. The edges of my vision started to blur into gray static. To fix this, I had to ground myself. I landed on a giant fungal cap that felt like velvet-covered memory foam and focused on the texture of my own hands. This is a pro tip. If the dream starts to fade, engage your senses. I felt the grit of the spores, smelled the ozone in the air, and that's when the world snapped back into 4K resolution. With my lucidity restored, I took off again, this time ditching the ice slide for pure, unadulterated flight. I wasn't just moving through space, I was bending it. I zipped through a canyon of floating clocks that were all ticking backward. Except as I reached the end of the canyon, the horizon started to flicker. It looked like a glitching video game, tearing textures and missing segments of the sky. Most people see those pixels and panic. Their brain thinks the world is breaking, which usually triggers a cold sweat wake-up call. Instead, I wanted to see the source code. I leaned into the glitch. I pushed through the static, and for a split second, the world became a wireframe. I saw the geometry of my own subconscious. The mushrooms dissolved into math. The wind turned into a symphony of pure light. It was the most pure fun I've ever had. Not because I was flying, but because I was seeing the machinery of my own imagination. I didn't hit the ground, and I didn't wake up in my bed. The glitch didn't break the dream. It just opened a door. I felt a sudden, gentle tug behind my navel, which meant it was time to move on. I simply leveled up. I transitioned from the flight school into a new realm where the sky was made of mirrors and the ground was made of music. Next time you find yourself falling, don't scream, don't fight the gravity. Just look for the slide, find your anchor, and push until the world starts to pixelate. I'll see you at the edge of the map.